38 and 39. And the title for today's class is A Confidential Principle for Spiritual Success. This session is humbly dedicated to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of Worldwide Hare Krishna Movement. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Creation, Chapter 7, The Son of Drona Punished, text number 38. Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mamo
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
Aharishye Sirastasya
Aharishye Shirastasya
Yaste Manini Putraha
Yaste Manini Putraha
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
Aharishye Sirastasya
Aharishye Shirastasya
Yaste Manini Putraha
Yaste Manini Putraha
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
Aharishye Sirastasya
Aharishye Shirastasya
Yaste Manini Putraha.
Yaste Manini Putraha.
Two Prabhus and one Mataji.
प्रतिश्रुतं च भवता
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
पाञ्चाल्ये शृण्वतो मम
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
आहरिष्ये शिरस्तस्य
Aharishye Sirastasya
यस्ते मानिनि पुत्रः
Yaste Manini Putraha.
प्रतिश्रुतं च भावता
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
पाञ्चाल्यै शृण्वतो मम
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
आहिष्यं श्राव्यतस्य
Aharishye Sirastasya
यस्ते मानिनि पुत्रः
Yaste Manini Putraha.
प्रतिश्रुतं च भवता
Pratishrutam cha bhavata
पाञ्चाल्यै शृण्वतो मम
Panchalyai Shrunvato Mama
आहरिष्ये शिरस्तस्य
Aharishye Sirastasya
यस्ते मानिनि पुत्रः
Yaste Manini Putraha. Anybody online? Synonyms: Pratishrutam, it is promised. Cha, and Bhavata, by you. Panchalyai, unto the daughter of the king of Panchala.
Unto the daughter of King
Draupadi.
Draupadi.
Shrinvataha,
Shunvataha,
which was heard.
which was heard.
Mama,
Mama,
by me personally.
by me personally.
Aharishye,
Aharishye,
must I bring.
must I bring.
Siraha,
Shiraha,
the head.
the head.
tasya,
tasya,
of him,
of him,
yaha,
yaha,
whom,
whom,
te,
te,
your,
your,
manini,
manini,
consider,
consider,
putraha,
putraha,
the killer of your sons.
the killer of your sons.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. Translation with repetition. Furthermore, I have personally heard you
I have personally heard you
promise Draupadi
promise Draupadi
that you would bring forth
that you will bring forth
the head of the killer of her sons.
the head of the killer of her sons.
There is no purport to this particular verse. We will read the next verse. I'll read it myself and we will repeat the translation. Tadaso badhyatam papa atatai atma bandhuha bhartuscha vipriyam vira kritavan kulapamshanaha. This man is an assassin and murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He's burnt the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. Translation with repetition. This man is an assassin
Assassin
and murderer of your own family members.
and murderer of your own family members.
Not only that,
Not only that,
but he has also dissatisfied his master.
but he has also dissatisfied his master.
He's burnt the burnt remnants
He is but the burnt remnants
of his family.
of his family.
Kill him immediately.
Kill him immediately.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
The son of Dronacharya is condemned here as the burnt remnants of his family. The good name of Dronacharya was very much respected. Although he joined the enemy camp, the Pandavas held him always in respect, and Arjuna saluted him before beginning the fight. There was nothing wrong in that way, but the son of Dronacharya degraded himself by committing acts which are never done by the Dvijas, or the twice born higher castes. Aswathama, the son of Dronacharya, committed murder by killing the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, by which he dissatisfied his master Duryodhana, who never approved of the heinous act of the killing the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. This means that Aswathama became an assaulter of Arjuna's own family members, and thus he was liable to be punished by him. In the Shastras, he who attacks without notice, or kills from behind, or sets fire to another's house, or kidnaps one's wife, is condemned to death. Krishna reminded Arjuna of these facts so that he might take notice of them and do the needful. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, we are in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam where we are talking about the son of Drona punished. And if you remember this chapter, this is 38th verse. So there have been lot of discussions which has happened as to what was the instruction which Narada Muni gave to Vyasadeva, how did he sit in meditation, what he saw in his perfect vision. Then the thing shifts. There is a shift of gear where they were interested in knowing how did Parikshit come into how did he get the throne. So this narration is continuing where it has begun with Aswathama, the son of Dronacharya, being punished. And why was he punished? Because he killed the 5 innocent sons of Draupadi who were not even adults, who were sleeping and weaponless in the dead of the night. Who did this? The son of Drona did this. Why did he do this? He wanted to please Duryodhana. But what happened when he saw that this has happened? Draupadi has taken this promise that he would take bath on the head of the killer of her sons. So this promise was made by Arjuna, and Arjuna is running furiously with his chariot to bind Aswathama. But Aswathama releases a Brahmastra, which was countered by Arjuna under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Krishna Krishna Mahabaho Bhaktanam Abhayankara Tvamekadahya Mananam Apavargo Sri Samsrite. That is the verse which Arjuna begins to speak before he sees that calamity. Then Krishna says you have to neutralize, because Aswathama didn't have the knowledge of retracting that weapon. So he does that, and then now he's been bound by Arjuna. And who's speaking these verses today that we are having? This verse is spoken by Krishna. Very nice verses, very wonderful verses. What are these verses? What we have today? This may look like why it is not going. Ho gaya Arjuna pakad liya, but what is it that Krishna is trying to say? It will go for another 10-12 verses before we know what Arjuna finally does with Aswathama. But there are a lot of very subtle points. That is why Bhagavatam is stressing on these episodes. Some of these very fundamental things, and Prabhupada has given lectures on most of these verses. So we have to pay attention to this. What is the verse that we have today? Pratishrutam cha bhavata panchalye shunvato mamo aharishye sirastasya yaste manini putraha. Pratishrutam. Pratishrutam comes from the word pratishruti. Pratishruti is a promise. Pratishrutam, you have promised. Having promised. Pratishrutam cha bhavata. You have promised. Who is telling this? Krishna. Krishna is telling to whom? He is telling to Arjuna. Pratishrutam cha bhavata panchalye shrunvato mamo. When you promised this to Panchali, to the daughter of Panchala, who is Draupadi, shrunvato mamo, I heard this. Pratishrutam cha bhavata panchalye shrunvato mamo aharishye sirastasya. Aharishye sirastasya. Have you heard this word harishye anywhere before? Karishye is different. Harishye. Very good. Harishye tadhanam sanai. Yasyaham anugrahanam harishye tadhanam sanai. Prabhupada quotes this verse many times. Yasyaham anugrahanam. Krishna says, to whom I show an extra favor, harishye dhanam. No, is not there. Harishye dhanam sanai. I take away all his material possessions. I make him almost penniless. So that whatever hope he has on this material world, that also gets shattered and he is forced to surrender to me. Doesn't happen with all. Happens with some selected few. Harishye sirastasya. Harishye sirastasya. You had promised. So Krishna is telling, Pratishrutam cha bhavata panchalye shrinvato mamo. I heard that promise you had made to Panchali, to Draupadi. What? Harishye sirastasya. You will get that head of that person who is killed. Yasyate manini putraha. Who is the killer of your sons. Harishye sirastasya. Yaste manini putraha. This is 38. And then the next one. Tadaso badhyatam papa. Atatai atma bandhuha. Bhartuscha bipriyam veera. Kratavan kulapamsanaha. Very powerful verses of Bhagavatam. Tad is therefore. Tad aso badhyatam papa. You should kill him. Badhyatam is, he deserves to be killed. This is the Sanskrit use of the word badhyatam. It's like you must. Tadaso badhyatam papa. You must kill this person. Why? Because he is atatai. He is an aggressor. He is an assassin. What kind of assassination he has done? Atma bandhuha, he is killer of your own sons. Atma bandhuha. Bhartuscha vipriyam veera. He could not satisfy his Bhartus, his master, Veera, Kritavan Kula Pamsana. He is the burnt remnant of his family. Kula Pamsanaha. There is a word which is used when you have to glorify someone. He is called Kula Pradipa or Kula Deepak. He is like the one who is going to bring light to the dynasty. He is going to spread the fame of that dynasty. But the opposite of that is, Prabhupada uses another word somewhere, not in this context, but in another place. He says Kula Angara. Kula Angara is ash. Like, whatever that fire was burning, he has made it extinguished, and it is Kula Angara. Or here it is Kula Pamsanaha. It is a burnt remnant. It is everything. That dynasty is finished. The fame of that dynasty is finished because of the Kritavan, because of the act of this person. So he deserves to be killed. These are the two verses that we have. If we read carefully the translations, furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. Furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. This man is an assassin and murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He is the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. And what is the title of our today's class? I put it in the beginning. You didn't look at that screen? The title is which confidential principle? There is a confidential principle which is needed for spiritual success. Based on these two verses that we just spoke, what do you think is the confidential principle which is mentioned in this? Not to dissatisfy the master, okay? Atatai? Okay, what about Atatai?
Who is burning the house, who is...
What is the confidential principle of spiritual success in Atatai?
The aggressor, right? So...
Aggressor is?
Aggressor must be killed.
Aggressor must be killed, that is the principle, okay? Who is the spiritual master of whom? Duryodhana is a master, okay? Aswathama disappointed his master. Anything else? Pamsana. Okay, you are destroying the tradition of your family. That's also a very good point. Okay, I will go back. Actually, some of you have told that rightly, but he killed? No, he killed what?
No,
He killed the babies.
not babies.
Sons of Draupadi. So, that is what is the principle of for? Okay, there is a verse that we had before, and that verse and this verse has some similarity. Of course, you have pointed out. In that one principle is what we are going to talk about. So this verse came maybe in the 17th or 18th one, I don't remember, or maybe 13th, 14th one. Yada mridhe kaurava shrinjayanam vireshu atha birogatim gateshu brikodara biddha gadam bhimarsa bhagnoru dande dhritarashtraputre bhartuh priyam draunir itisma pashyan krishna sutanam swapatam siramsi upaharad vipriyam eva tasya jugupsitam karma bigarhayanti. This is when Sutta Goswami begins to narrate about this whole episode. He gives a glimpse of what is going on. Yada mridhe kaurava shrinjayanam. Yada, when at that time, mridhe in the battlefield, yada mridhe kaurava shrinjayanam. Battlefield of Kauravas and Shrinjayanam. Shrinjayanam is Pandavas. So in the battlefield between Pandavas and the Kauravas, vireshu atho viragatim gateshu. All these, viras, all these warriors, having gone back to their destinations, viragatim, they are all died. Vireshu atho virogatim gateshu, brikodara abidha gada bhimarsa. Brikodara is Bhima. Bhima's name is Brikodara because he had a lot of, big fire of Jatragni, that big digestion fire. Brikodara abidha, being beaten by the gada, the mace of Bhima, abhimarsa. There is lamentation. Bhagnoru dande. Bhagno uru dande. Uru dande is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is broken. Dhritarashtra putre. Dhritarashtra putre is referring to Duryodhan. Duryodhan's spinal cord was broken by the beating of Bhima's gada. Brikodara abidha gada bhimarsa. Bhagnoru dande dhritarashtra putre. Bhartu priyam draunir itisma pashyan. Krishna sutanam swapatam siramsi. Bhartu priyam draunir. Bhartu priyam. Bhartu is master. To please the master, draunir itisma pashyan. Drauni is the son of Dronacharya, Aswathama. He saw that this is an opportunity to please my master. So what he did? Krishna sutanam swapatam siramsi. Krishna is referring to Draupadi here. Draupadi's sons, Krishna sutanam swapatam. When they were sleeping, Siramsi, he beheaded them. He took away their the heads. Upaharad bipriyam evatasya. He brought those and he gave it as a present to Duryodhana, as a gift. Upaharad bipriyam evatasya. Jugupsitam karma bigarhayanti. But however, this act of the Aswathama was jugupsitam, condemnable, karma bigarhayanti, and was not approved by Duryodhana. If you see in these two, the verses that I just put it, the word that is used here is called bhartuscha vipriyam, and that same word is used here also. Bhartu priyam, upaharad vipriyam. So Bhartu is the master. The idea was he wanted to please Duryodhana, but Duryodhana was not pleased by that. Vipriyam. Vipriyam evatasya jugupsitam karma bigarhayanti. So the principle that we are going to talk about is something which is very powerful. It's a very confidential principle, but a very pivotal principle in our spiritual life. And how, especially people who are not trained, who are not very experienced, they find it very difficult to practice. Or because of the material conditioning that we have, it makes us, it makes our heart very hard to follow these instructions. This is critical in our advancement in spiritual life. What is this principle? So the principle is we sing this particular song, Mangalarati, every day. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Yasya aprasadan nagati kutopi. Dhyayan stuvam stasya yasastri sandhyam. Vande guru shri charanarabindam. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. When one pleases the spiritual master, the Lord gets pleased. And when one displeases, or when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master, na gati kutopi. In the three world, there is no place for him to go. Yasya aprasadan nagati kutopi. Dhyayam stubam stasya yasastri sandhyam. I remember that spiritual master in three sandhya time. Dhyayam stubam stasya yasastri sandhyam. Vande guru shri charanarabindam. This principle is a very powerful principle in advancing in spiritual life. The principle of pleasing the spiritual authority. The principle of doing something which not only ensures we are doing some sacrifice or austerity in our mind, body and action, but we are aligning ourselves with the will of the Lord, because the will of the Lord is demonstrated by the instructions of the will of the spiritual master. Will of the Lord is very difficult to know for us. We have been seeing in last few verses of Bhagavad Gita how will of the Lord is so powerful. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayisami ma sucha. Srila Prabhupada says you surrender to Krishna because Krishna is one who is going to deliver. The spiritual master's instruction is non-different from Krishna's instruction. He doesn't say that you surrender to somebody else. No. He also says the same thing. But to understand the will of Lord, we need to follow the instructions of the spiritual master because they can disclose the will of the Lord. So when we align ourselves with the instructions of our spiritual master, when we follow and we please, the Supreme Lord becomes pleased. This is a very, very confidential principle, and this has to be exhibited in our lives properly. But as I was mentioning, and some of you were pointing out, if you pay attention to these words that we were seeing, Bipriyam, be Priyam. Priyam is to become pleasing. Bipriyam, it's not pleasing. So this thing is brought out by Krishna here. Bhartuscha Bipriyam Vira. The act of, he's saying that he is Atatai, he killed your own enemy, he killed your own relatives, Atma Bandhuha, he killed your own sons. But more than anything else, he also dissatisfied his master. Now that is a very important principle. Bhartuscha Bipriyam Vira, Kritavan Kulapamsana. He's a Kulapamsana, he is a burnt remnant of his family. He has brought so much of infamy, he deserves to be killed. But he has particularly added this, even Krishna is adding this, Bipriyam, Bhartuscha Bipriyam. It's a very important thing. Because in life, especially in this conditioned material life, we all want to do things independently. मजा किस में है? जब कोई बोलता है आपको करो, उसमें है कि जब हम खुद से करते हैं. अपने आप जाएंगे, वहाँ घूमेंगे, देखेंगे, थोड़ा एक्सप्लोर करेंगे, एंड देन उसके बाद जो मज़ा है उसमें, वो किसी के बोलने से आपको somebody has told you, you do this, you come and clean the temple, or you do something. There is no fun in that. The fun lies more when nobody is monitoring my activities, or I want to do things on my own, isn't it? When I go on my own, when there is no restrictions, I can do anything unrestrictedly. There is some kind of an enjoyment in that. But that mentality is curbed here. That mentality is not approved or not encouraged here. Let us pay attention to this, why this is required. Because Duryodhan was not the spiritual master of Aswathama. But why it is important to please Duryodhana? What happened, if you see the mentality of Aswathama in this case, he thought that this will please my authority. He thought, he didn't check. Bhartu priyam drauni ritisma pashyan. He thought in his mind, if I do this, it will please him. And what did he do? He did not check. And he went ahead and killed the sons of the Pandu, the sons of Arjuna and Draupadi when they were asleep. So this action of Aswathama represents something which is also there in all our hearts, to do things as independently as possible. And that leads to so much of problems in spiritual life. You can see there are some devotees, some people, they act in a particular way when the authority is present. Right? They will be very well behaved, everything will be very nice. The moment if they get to even sense that somebody is not there, then they start behaving in a completely different way. They will show their real, because it is not, it naturally comes out. So like for example, if somebody has to come and attend Mangalarati at the right time, or say maybe Gaura Arati, the moment if some authority is not there, now I'm not saying everybody, but if that, there are some people who will be waiting, nahi hai na, aaram se jayenge. We can go at our own time, we'll keep eating prasadam, or we will miss the Guru Puja, we will miss something, because nobody is there to see. That mentality, that anyway I am following, some things. I am doing something which I know good, but there are things now, there is nobody seeing me, I can do something else. Prabhupada says there is one phrase which he uses. It is called in Bengali, Bagha Ghare Miriganata. In the cave of lion, when the lion is not present, when the deer get to know about it, all the deer will come and they will do a drama. Where they are doing? In the cave of lion, right? Bagha Ghare Miriganata. So when this mentality shows that actually we are not doing devotional service out of our genuine, intention. The intention is somehow because they have to, somebody is monitoring or seeing me. You tell them repeatedly, they will still find ways of dodging, doing things independently. So what happens is this, where it leads to, what is the problem with this kind of a mentality? Let's see that for some time. Why follow authority? Very valid question that can come in somebody's mind. What is the advantage of following authority? What happens when we follow and what happens when we don't follow? The first thing, why we should follow authority is because of our imperfect life, imperfection in our thinking, imperfection in our words, imperfection in our action. We are not perfect. What is the example? Classic example of this. Can anybody guess what is the example which I am trying to say here? What do you see in this picture? Is it clear? Can you see what's going on here? People are looking at some. Who are these people? Monkeys. Anybody online? What are you seeing? Hare Krishna. Srini, what are you seeing? People, the Vanaras, okay. What else? Nobody? Okay. So basically this imperfection which is shown here is actually, these are Yamadutas. And the person who is sitting there on the throne is Yamaraj. So what is the imperfection which is mentioned here? If you see this picture, actually these Yamadutas, they very closely observe and associate with Yamaraj because they are his associates. So they very closely associate with Yamaraj and they observe him very closely. But still, they made the mistake of arresting Ajamila. Why did they do that? So when they are defeated by the Vishnudutas, they gave good reasons to Vishnudutas. Still they are prone to mistakes. They thought, Prabhupada writes, they thought they knew the law simply by hearing Yamaraj give verdicts, because they've been seeing so many people are brought before Yamaraj based on their past activities, whether it is sinful or pious activities. Yamaraj will give the verdict, whether he has to go to some hellish planets for suffering, for some punishments, or he'll enjoy in the heavenly planets. Irrespective of whatever it is, they thought that they knew the law simply by hearing Yamaraj give the verdicts. So what happened because of that? So first thing is, the Yamadutas, they closely observe and associate with Yamaraj, but still they made the mistake of arresting Ajamila. Although they were under Yamaraj, there is a difference between them and Yamaraj. They are sinful and conditioned souls, but Yamaraj is a Mahajan. Just because we are associating with some devotees, we should not think we have also become perfected. Actually, we are deep within, we are very, very sinful and conditioned. Our mind, intelligence are not in the pure state to make the right decision for ourselves. We are always prone to mistakes. That is why this mistake on the part of Yamadutas, where they thought that they know, because they have heard so many times Yamaraj give this verdict, they thought they can also take this decision. They did not know the glories of holy names and the effect of chanting Namabhas, and they bound up. They got Ajamila. Is it only with Yamadutas that this happens? No, this imperfection can happen with even exalted personalities like Brahma. We all know this, the famous Brahma Vimohana Lila. Even Arjuna's reasons for not fighting were based on scriptures, but his knowledge was incomplete. Even Brahma and Shiva got bewildered in Brahma Vimohan Leela and seeing Mohini Murti respectively. Lakshmana also made the mistake. We were having Ramayana where we were talking about the different kind of misunderstandings which happened. Lakshmana made the mistake of judging Kaikeyi, Bharat, Dasarath and the population of Ayodhya. When Bharat and the population of Ayodhya came to take back Lord Ram, he thought that probably they are coming to attack here. Any one of us can do mistakes because we are having this, we are all conditioned, we are here in this material world, we are not perfect. That is why it is important that we should take consultants and guidance from our authority. This is the first reason. What is the second reason? The second reason is, this is a very powerful statement by Prabhupada, an imperfect authority is perfect if he follows the perfect. It's a very, very powerful statement. You may say that, okay, that person, I'm seeing he himself has got so many problems, so many issues. But there is a spiritual potency, there is a spiritual power which has been given to a person. He may be imperfect, but because he is part of the system which is spiritually perfect and he is empowered, so even if he is imperfect, he becomes perfect. And this is directly from this purport of 4.18.5. So, and then Prabhupada says how the mentality, what is the present mentality of people? At the present moment, it has become fashionable to disobey the unimpeachable directions given by the acharyas and liberated souls of the past. Presently, people are so fallen that they cannot distinguish between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is hampered by 4 defects. He is sure to commit mistakes. He is sure to become illusioned. He has a tendency to cheat others, and his senses are imperfect. Consequently, we have to take direction from the liberated persons. This is a conclusion. Consequently, we have to take direction, because if you take direction from any other person, they are all imperfect. They have got these 4 defects. You can't rely. And it's a fashion to disobey. The authority, scriptures, acharyas, their opinions, they don't value this. They can't even see the distinction between a liberated person and a conditioned living entity. Hence, the first conclusion is that we have to take direction from a liberated persons. This Krishna consciousness movement directly receives instructions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead via persons who are strictly following his instructions. Then the next statement which Prabhupada makes is a very powerful one. Although a follower may not be a liberated person, if he follows the Supreme Liberated Personality of Godhead, his actions are naturally liberated from the contamination of material nature. This is a powerful statement. The reason why this authority system established by Prabhupada in this movement, in this institution works, is if somebody, even if he is imperfect, he is empowered and he is following the instructions given by his authority, he becomes spiritually empowered. Lord Chaitanya therefore says, by my order you may become a spiritual master. One can immediately become a spiritual master by having full faith in the transcendental words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by following his instructions. Materialistic men are not interested in taking directions from a liberated persons, but they are very much interested in their own concocted ideas, which make them repeatedly fail in their attempts. Because the entire world is now following the imperfect directions of conditioned souls, humanity is completely bewildered. You see, the proof is there in front of us. We can look around how people, when they listen to their own concocted ideas or to other conditioned souls, this leads to a state of bewilderment. This is a system which is established. There is a strong merit, but unfortunately we don't see the problems in us in not following this. Rather, we find fault in the system which makes it go away from this. Very nicely, Prabhupada, if you summarize this, what Prabhupada is saying, how this imperfect authority is perfect if he follows the perfect. There are few things. If you see in the life of Prabhupada, you can see that Prabhupada has worked hard to establish the authority, the leaders. He created the GVC, then sannyasis, temple presidents, to see the spiritual standards. Srila Prabhupada's books are full of authority. Nobody can concoct. The control, however, is based upon logic, reason, and love, and not on force. Authority is required to control, discipline our life, to bring a method in the madness in our life, to make our life really, suitable, to make progress in our spiritual life. This is how the system has been designed by Prabhupada. Even to the extent, when there is a GBC voting, Srila Prabhupada will raise hand, showing his acceptance of the authority of GBC body. When there is a voting system, whether this should be, that shows how much of, this thing Prabhupada had for that system that he has created. So the important thing that we have to learn from this particular purport, it's a very powerful purport. The substitute for liberated person, you will not find a liberated person, but at least find a person who is strictly following his instructions. We may not have that. Our devotees who are there in the senior devotees, we can see and learn from their lives how much they are following strictly that instructions. That inspires, and that is how they become empowered. And when we follow their directions, that is how we also get that empowerment. The moment we try to do things independently, it leads to havoc. Devotional life becomes chaos. We will see further. So this is the second reason. The third reason, consulting helps. This is a very powerful thing. Often people think that they don't need any help and they can do things on their own. What happens when somebody has that mentality? Being absorbed in our seva and projects, we overlook the dangers and obstacles for our spiritual growth. Senior authorities, due to their experience and mature vision, can direct us and offer timely help. We have lot of faith in ourselves, our judgment, character, and our own intelligence rather than others. But the whole training of our spiritual life is we have to learn to put faith in those who represent Krishna. This is not some material designation that somebody has been given a position of a temple commander or a temple president. It's not material designation. It is a system where somebody has been just doing his duty of being a president or a temple commander. These are very important because this system is established by Prabhupada. We have to learn to put faith in those who represent Krishna. Faith in parampara, spiritual master, and scriptures. Unless we change our action, the more we have faith in our own selves, in our own judgment, in our own character, and our own intelligence, we will never correct. What it does is, it leads to so many calamities in life. I'll give you a few examples. Srila Prabhupada welcomed ideas from devotees if their ideas were in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastras. He always wanted to have ideas. Listening to authority doesn't mean that you have to always you can give your ideas. You can always suggest some things. But if that is not approved, you should not feel morose or sad. There are so many constraints why that idea could not be executed. But at least you should feel happy that you could express these things. You put forward your views, and then you should leave it there in a matter of detachment. There's a very nice story actually, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's one story, very instructive story, of an old monkey's advice of fire in the horse barn. How many of you know this? Tell me what you know about it.
They used horse's skin or something to use as fire repellent or something, right?
Close, very close. Okay, hold on. But you'll spoil the way you'll say, but you know it. I got it. That's the right one, right answer. Basically, what happened, pay attention, very interesting what happens when we live life independently. And this is not something which we have to see in others. We have to see it in ourselves. How much we have that Aswathama mentality where we don't want to consult and do things like he went and killed the sons of Pandu. Sons of, always Pandu is coming, the sons of Arjuna or Draupadi. How much that mentality is there. In small little things, when we do things, we can see in our actions what we are doing, and we should reflect and how should we correct. This story is a very nice instructive story. So there was a kingdom, as he was telling, there was a king who was maintaining some monkeys to entertain his sons, maybe one son. So the monkeys were fed sumptuously, a lot of delicacies every day. And the leader of the monkeys was very well versed with the scriptures, and he was well versed with the instructions of wise personalities like Brihaspati, Chanakya, Sukracharya. He was very aware. So that's why he's called the wise old monkey. He was aware of everything. So then what happened? There was also a herd of sheep in the king's palace. And this little prince, he used to ride on them for fun. Like yesterday you all went for whoever you went. Did you go to that field trip for the goat and all that you were carrying? You're not there. You went? You were there. Nobody else was there. Anyway, they were playing, the children, they like to play with the goat. So this little prince, he used to play with the ship. Sometimes he'll sit on that, he will ride on that, and he'll go here and there. Like that, he was having some fun. So then, what happened in the herd of the ship? There were some sheep who were very fond of stealing from the palace kitchen. So when nobody is around, some of the sheep, they will go into the kitchen and they will steal some food items. And the cooks in the kitchen, quite often, they would be forced to beat the sheep with whatever this thing they found. I mean, they'll have that belan ka badi hai, jo bhi hai, pagda hai, usse maarte the. So this was going on, and this few sheep, they were not changing their behavior. They would go and steal, and they would continue doing that. And the cook, whatever he will find, sometimes some knife, sometimes some stick, sometimes hot tawa, jo bhi mila, usse dete the unko. The monkey leader, he thought that, the behavior of the sheep, because these are wise people, right? So he thought, and he saw the behavior of the cook, the reaction that he was having. So he thought that maybe in the long run, there could be a disaster for the monkeys. Why he thought like that? See how he's thinking. The sheep are extremely gluttonous. I mean, they have to eat at any cost. And the cooks, on the other hand, they have this intent of beating them. Come whatever is there in their hand, they are going to beat them. If the cooks at any time hit the sheep with a burning stick from the fire, then what will happen is the woolen body that they have, the woolly body of the sheep, it will start burning. And what is the cure for that? If a sheep, it is burning and in a frenzy, it runs here and there, and it goes to the king or the horse stable, then the horse stable can catch fire, and the horses also will, the whole thing will be ablaze. This is horse barn which will catch fire. And there is a remedy for curing that, and the remedy is to take the tallow from monkey. The animal tallow. Tallow is something which is like a fat which is there in the animals, which is used generally for making some soap and all. So the tallow of monkey is the remedy for the burn of the horses. So it's a matter of time when the king will see that this has happened, and then they will kill the monkeys, and they will use the tallow for curing the horses. So apprehending danger, the wise monkey, the leader, he called all the monkeys, and confidentially he spoke that these cooks are constantly beating you. I mean, constantly beating the ship. It is possible that this kind of a situation may happen. The whole barn may catch fire, and if that happens, then the horses will be burned. And the remedy for that is the tallow of monkey. So better we should leave this place. But the arrogant young monkeys, they didn't pay any respect. And they simply ridiculed the old monkey. You must be under some sort of delusion due to your advanced age. So you talk like a lunatic. We are not interested in leaving the place for forest fire. For in the forest, we will only have distasteful fruits as our food. Here we eat varieties of nectarian foodstuffs. And we are served by the prince himself. Why would we leave this? So when he heard With tearful eyes, the old monkey, he told, "Oh fools, you do not know the future results of your temporary pleasures. Your desires will ultimately cause your destruction. I will live for the forest alone, for I don't want to witness your deaths." And the monkey leader left. The eventual day came where all these things, whatever he had predicted, happened, and they were burnt. I mean, they were killed, and he just heard that and shedded some tears in isolation. Point is, there is a lot of merit in the advice of senior devotees. Lot of merit. We must consult. We must listen. Often our own blind spots we can't see, but another devotee can see and point out. The blind spot which is there, it is a blind spot for me, not for others. The car which is coming there, other people are able to see. It's only me who's not able to see. So consulting is a very important step in our devotional life. Srila Prabhupada consulted his god brothers before sannyas and before moving away from Jhansi. Prabhupada himself did this when he was about to take sannyas. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts the advice of Sanatana Goswami on not traveling to Vrindavan with huge crowds. There is nothing wrong. Devotional life begins with obedience. Devotional life begins when we become more dependent, when we give up this idea of independence. When we try to do something without telling, there is a rasa in that, but that rasa is very detrimental. This is the third thing. The fourth thing, the fourth and the more important thing is the mercy flows by following. This is a secret. This is a very open secret. When somebody follows, the act of following ensures mercy flows. You may do things independently. Somebody has not told you to do this, but you will fiddle around. You will do this when nobody, now that devotee is not there, I'll come and somehow secretively I do this. You may achieve the rasa of fixing that or doing something on your own, or you will hide in your room, not come for any program, and only show up when you know that somebody is there. You may get some rasa in that, but you will not get the mercy. The mercy only flows by following. What are the examples of this? The first thing is we can develop humility and surrender by following our authorities. Thus we attract Lord's mercy. This is the whole sum and substance of spiritual life. Material life, outside material world, is promoting how you can become independent, how you should not depend on anyone. But spiritual life is all about developing that humility and surrender. When we develop a humility and surrender here, that attracts the mercy of Lord. Example of this, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami met Lord at Ramakeli through Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur. They could not have met them without the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur. So the mercy flows by following the authorities. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu standing next to the devotee Garuda to get Jagannath's mercy. I don't know how many of you know this, but Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always used to stand at a distance, at a far off place. He was standing next to Garuda Dev, so that if the mercy of Garuda Dev is there, he will get the mercy of Jagannath. This was the mood. Raghunath Das Goswami approaching Lord Nityananda's mercy to attain Gauranga's mercy. He took Nityananda's shelter first before receiving the mercy of Gauranga. Then the fifth one, it is our natural position to follow authority. It's a very interesting thing. I'll tell you something very powerful from our purport, from the purport of, it is not purport, it is actually one article which is written by Bhurijan Prabhu in Back to Godhead. Very interestingly, he summarizes one mentality. How Kali Yuga, how Kali personified, how does he act? What is the means of Kali's acting? To be an independent individual is a modern disease and is contrary to Varnashrama. Varnashrama dharma is purely based on following the authority. That is how it is not meant to exploit. There is a respect for the superiors and there is a care from the superiors to the subordinates. So that the respect and the care takes care that whole system is overhauled properly and it is working properly. So it is not that the person who is the superior, he wants to exploit or take advantage, and it is not that the subordinate disrespects. No, there is respect and there is care, and that is how it is to work. But to become an independent individual is a modern disease and is contrary to Varnashrama. This is an article which I read, very interesting thing. So Bhurijan Prabhu writes this, Kali's business is to defy authority. This is business of Kali. The moment you see anywhere where there is, there is defying the authority, and that is how Kali enters in our minds. Because there is nothing that, can shake us. This is a spiritual organization. The activities that we are doing are all meant to please Krishna. But it can enter into the mind of devotee in the form of finding faults with the authority and becoming how I can defy. I'll do things on my own. These people think. Who are these people? Kali's business is to defy authority. When people drive towards self-oriented independence, the result is they are filled with anxieties, general discontent and loneliness. You see the devotees, some of the devotees who are very independent, very independently oriented, they will have a lot of anxieties because they're not consulting. They'll have anxieties and they'll be discontent. Their heart always will be, there is no content. Some of the things, even if it is coming to doing devotional service for the Lord, they will do out of grudge. And that they think it is not seen or visible, it is seen. And this becomes an offense even in Seva Aparad, DT Aparad, Vaishnava, so many things are there. So one is, because the independent mentality, you want to do things, you don't want to share, you don't want to ask permission, you want to do things, it leads to anxieties, then there is discontent and loneliness. Who is to be blamed for this? One simple attitude change. Life can be exactly opposite. It can be filled with bliss. You can feel the satisfaction that I am doing properly. There's no need to feel any of those loneliness or anything of that sort, but it comes because of that attitude of independence. Kali's revolutionary solution is to seek progress through science. Forget the pain with intoxication, movies, computers, sports, music, and sex. That's what Kali's revolutionary solution. Why you have to follow all these rules, regulations, this thing, authority, asking? Forget about it. Science is making so much progress. Let's go, enjoy. We will go do some movies, do intoxication, computers, sports, whatever, music. Just increase your self-esteem. After all, who but yourself is ultimately important? है कि नहीं? मैं तो हूँ अपना सब कुछ, मैं तो सबसे बड़ा आदमी हूँ. As soon as one forgets that he is a servant of Krishna, the name that we get, the spiritual name, the most important thing in that is Dasa or Dasi. But the moment we forget that Dasa, I am a servant, or I am a servant of, we forget about servant of servant. Even that Dasa goes away, I am so and so. That's it. So then what happens? Then he must alternatively develop false ego. Kali thus makes the false ego flourish. This is the problem with our independent mentality. We have to be very, very careful. Actually, the precious gift that we've been given, we can spoil it because of our ignorance, because of our lack of, this one slight attitudinal change which we are not able to do. It will lead to disaster. As we are seeing in the case of Aswathama, doing this kind of a heinous act, not thinking twice, not consulting. There are more to this, but if you really want to develop what is the right attitude, in Bhagavatam there are two instances. The instance of Devahuti. What is your name? Aklasha Prabhu. So you turn on this mantra, this thing every day, right? There is one slide which comes, which talks about the instruction of Kapiladev to Devahuti. Madhupandit Prabhu has taken various verses from different parts and he has put it in different slides, right? Do you remember which instruction of Kapiladev to his mother is there in the slides? Anybody else? Not you. Okay. Six principles? No, not six principles. Kapiladev's instruction, it is there. So we sometimes put that. That also becomes a ritual, means mechanical way. We just go and put it, but actually if I look back, not all of us, not many of us are even paying attention. Maybe you're not paying attention during japa time, okay, something, you want to focus or you want to hear your words, something is going on. At least afterwards we should see what are those slides. What is there? I mean, everything in our life should not become mechanical. Sometimes I see, I don't want to mention, sometimes I was seeing during Tulsi Arati, there are 3 devotees. One is looking like this somewhere. Tulsi Maharani is this side. And then the other one is closed eyes. And the third one, no words. In our temple only. And so what happens is, when we do things in a ritualistic way, in a mechanical way, we don't get the spiritual power. The presence of ours, when we, this is a service, this requires attention, this requires my consciousness which needs to touch the Supreme Lord, the deities. I need to develop a certain characteristics which is far different. It is expected of me. It is not some attendance I have to give and then I have to run away for my things. It is very difficult, I know. I mean, especially maybe for grahasthas, it's even more difficult. So many things are going on. But at least the moment you are entering into this temple hall, you should switch off your problems and whatever those things, the worries, for the time being, just for the time being. And be present before the Lord. Glorify Him. Get the relish for your heart, the satisfaction in your heart that you have done this properly. If that doesn't happen, then as I was mentioning yesterday, that Swadhyaya, Seva and then the Sadhana, if these 3 things are not done properly, the vehicle will not go. The journey will be so burdensome. You don't want to, what is to be done? I am just one initiated devotee, I have to come to temple, I have to do so many things, then I have to hear. We are not taking in the right context. When we understand this, what is the spiritual life and how this journey can be, it can be lightning fast. If we do this, take care of these 3 things, life will be glorious. So that is the mentality of, okay, the words that Prabhu has used in the slide is called Bishrambhena and Gauravena. Look for these 2 words. There are many words which are used by Prabhu. One is Sauhardena Atigadhena. This is an instruction which Krishna gave to Arjuna when Arjuna was again morose after he got defeated from the cowherd boys. There are 2 words which are used there called Sauhardena Atigadhena. But the word used by Kapila Muni to Devahuti, Bishrambhena and Gauravena, intimately. She served without reservation. She served Vishrambhena and Gauravena. These 2 words are used by Prabhu in one of the slides. Look for that. So those attitude of Devahuti is exemplary. How to serve. Nothing expecting in return, but you get everything that you need. Everything that you deserve will come to you because of your attitude. And then there is the attitude or the mentality of Indra, where he defied his own spiritual master. He is there right in front of him. He became so puffed up. Indra, after all, he is only my spiritual master. Every day I am respecting. No. Today, one day, whatever it is, I just threw that garland. This is the mentality where somebody wants to do things independently, or that familiarity comes and that leads to contempt. So this is a very, very confidential principle for spiritual success. But if one follows it nicely and embraces it in his life will be very, very nice, very peaceful. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Any question? Point number 2. I just put it in. I think it is consulting. No, imperfect. Following the imperfect person becomes perfect, even though he is imperfect.
follow what you're saying, right? But why does the human mind does not want to do this one?
That's a very good question. This question is answered by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter, where he says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Because of our imperfect knowledge or lack of knowledge, what we are not able to see is that we are always controlled by the 3 modes of material nature. They are actually the real doers. But because of Prakriti Kriyamanani Gune Karmani Sarvasa Ahankara Vimudhatma, because of that false ego, I am thinking I am the doer. That false ego makes us believe I deserve to enjoy the fruits of my action. I don't see that there are so many contributing factors in making that things happen, including the intelligence, the ability, everything is borrowed, is given by the Lord, and it can be withdrawn any moment. But there is that sense of, that I have done it, I, me, mine. It doesn't allow us to, that's why that rasa, that I did this, it comes. It doesn't allow us to surrender. It doesn't allow us to, that is the fundamental reason why we are here in this material world. Because we want to be the enjoyer, we want to be the controller, we don't want to surrender. And our material world also encourages that kind of a mentality. People want to become, especially here in this country. My God, if you tell some children also something, so many protocols, people will, you can't correct them, you can't tell them anything, things like that. Is encouraging heavily to become independent. Even in colleges, like in divinity school, if you bring some references from the scriptures or old, some acharyas or some of their points, Siddhanta, they say, no, think independently. This is not good. So this is heavily encouraged everywhere. And that is leading to all kinds of bewilderment, all kinds of confusion, all kinds of miseries. Does that help? What happens is, out of the coverings that we have got, the gross covering of this body, the subtler covering of mind, intelligence and false ego, they get subtler and subtler and subtler. As things get subtler, they are more difficult to overcome. It is probably, you can understand that the body I have to give up one day, so I'm not supposed to be so attached with the body. That kind of an understanding can come, not easy, but still it is possible. But even subtler than this gross body is mind. Maybe you will be able to overcome the distractions of mind with some mantra meditation or things like that. But subtler than the mind is intelligence, and subtler than the intelligence is false ego. That covering is very difficult to overcome. That is why, if you remember the verse of Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gabhihastini, Suni Chena Swapakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. Vidya is required, transcendental knowledge which acts on the intelligence, but there is humility which is required to counter this false ego. Vidya Vinaya, when somebody gets endowed with the transcendental knowledge and humility, he will be able to see all this so-called, variegated or different things with equal vision. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gabhihastini, Suni Chena Swapakecha. Brahmana, a Gabhihasti, a pregnant elephant, Suni Chena, a dog, and a dog eater with equal vision. That only comes by Vidya and Vinaya. We need a lot of heavy dose of transcendental knowledge, which we lack now, to develop the right vision. But that alone is not enough. We also know we also need to have the humility to counter the false ego. These are the instructions of Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that by Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. One has to consider himself to be lower than the straw, more tolerant than the tree. Amanina Manadena. Never expect any respect for yourself, yet give respect to others. Kirtaniya Sadahari. In that state only Kirtaniya Sadahari is possible. Any other question?
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, so what should be the attitude of a follower or one who is under the authority? Sometimes the idea that the result is more important comes into picture, and the idea would be that the result is coming better, and And in that pursuit, sometimes it becomes that the idea of maybe giving the result is providing happiness, as you said, the concoction of Ashwatthama.
Mm-hmm.
So, what all factors should a servant keep in mind while executing the duties?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically what happens, actually Prabhupada talks about this one of the conversations. I couldn't put it due to little lack of time. The thing which Prabhupada says is something called, actually let me,
Is it about understanding the mind of the superior authority?
yeah, mind of the superior authority. There he talks about two words. Antarmukha Sisya and a Bahirmukha Sisya. Very interesting words. Internal disciple and there is one external disciple. Antarmukha Sisya is one who understands the mood of the spiritual master and faithfully follows the instructions of the spiritual master. And then he personally experiences the relationship from within his heart. This is Antarmukha Sisya. There is an external disciple is someone who is always looking at things from the external point of view. He is the person who is always trying to be the next guru, to become famous. Once Prabhupada asked, so many Haribols, but when are they going to follow my instructions? So a Bahirmukha Sisya, he feels, let me just avoid these devotees who don't listen to me. I will simply associate with people who like me. He does not know how to associate with his peers. So what I am trying to say is, the intention, Antarmukha Sisya is, he is understanding the mood and the mind of the spiritual master, and he personally experiences the relationship from within his heart. That is there, his intent is very different. But this Bahirmukha Sisya is only looking how I can get some recognition, how I can do this. Okay, some things are not happening in this, this is not looking palatable to me, favorable to me. I have got some other people who like me, who appreciate me. Maybe better I should go and associate with them. Or I should just be in the limelight for somehow or other. They really are not, they don't take the spirit of the instruction. They just, somehow they are just there. So that is the difference. So when we are following, our goal should not be whether I am going to get some accolades for this, whether I am going to get some recognition for this, or whether I am genuinely going to please what has been asked of me. Every single service that is given to me, I can do it in two ways, just for the sake of doing it and finish it off, or I do it with utmost sincerity. That sincerity is what attracts Guru and Krishna. That sincerity, you can't buy it anywhere. You either have it or you don't have it. And when we lack that sincerity, one thing which has been told to you over and over, you still neglect. You find your own ideas, you come up with your this thing, and you say that I was doing something, I was busy. These are all absolutely no. Big strict no's. Actually, it is a very interesting topic. I mean, it is something which is not paid enough attention, and people don't know when they go on doing that, how they are harming themselves in their spiritual progress. But when we become careful of this one thing, learn this attitude of taking consultation, taking advice. You may not do it, but at least develop the habit of asking before doing. That will make a huge change, huge transition. Because the system established is perfect. That is 100% true. Whether you like, and sometimes in our minds we think that, okay, this person is very young, maybe he is not qualified. The age is not really the factor. The factor is how much that person has surrendered, how much he is dependent to follow the instructions of Krishna, how much sacrifice he has made. That is the factor, not how old he is or what is this thing. And another thing that we have to keep in mind is that this authorities, after all, they are doing this austerity of shouldering this responsibilities. This is not an easy thing. This is a big task, and they are also doing it voluntarily. Maybe there are some imperfections, but my job is not to find faults with them. Rather, I have to see how I can work in this system, because the system is established by Prabhupada, and follow in consultation, do things together. That is where the success lies.
Prabhu, one question.
Yes,
on that similar line. In a case where a person is not able to understand the mood or makes mistakes in that, so it's very clear that he doesn't understand the mood. is it better to focus on explicitly spoken instructions rather than focus on results? Or because sometimes the authority also says, I want this to be done, which means he was looking at the result. But in the process, and that's a little longer term objective. So in the process, there are many intermediate steps to be executed.
Yes.
So at that time, just expanding on the question that he asked, Prabhu asked, is it better to give more importance to the longer term objective, but given what you just said, is it better that because one should realize that I don't understand the mood, better to just follow the instruction even if the result is delayed or not obtained?
Yeah, I think there is one very important consideration to be kept in the mind is something called clarify. Wherever there is confusion, if you think that in your mind the instruction was not clear, or there is a long-term goal which is expected but the small steps are not clear, you can clarify. I'm planning to do like this, these are the things. What happens is when we assume and do things, we could have achieved much more. But because of that assumption, which is on our part, which is not wrong, it is an intelligent, and not having taken an approval, it leads to small gains, maybe a little bit this thing, because our mind intelligence only can achieve only a certain thing. But when we surrender and align, that empowerment gives us, that mercy gives us far more, bigger results than we could have possibly achieved. That's what is the difference. So clarification is a very important thing. Okay, we'll stop here and continue to see this as it unfolds in Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for attending. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki